The Politics program is brought to you, as always, by everybody who goes ahead and supports patreon.com/JURY. Guys, just overwhelming the support that you guys gave throughout the end of this political season. Thank you. We will be doing a brand new In Your House tour. I am currently soliciting where you might like for us to go. So if you would like to sponsor a house show, then go ahead and email in justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. Put house show in the subject line. But thank you to everybody. If you'd like to peel off a few coins from your daily life and kick it my way, then go ahead and check it out. Patreon.com/JURY. We are now down back to 2 hours a week, as opposed to the very luxurious 4. However, we got some fun stuff in the hopper. There's going to be some new content. I got used to doing 4 episodes a week. I feel like I can at least do 3. So we will see how that goes. Either way, go ahead and support it. Patreon.com/JURY. And by The Contender at thecontender.us. Hey guys, the All I Do Is Win pack has not only been ordered, however, it's already gotten here. It's in America, everywhere around the world, specifically China. They're coming to America. This is our 12 card expansion that includes lines from victory speeches throughout all of the last 3 decades, including Gerald Ford and his victory, I guess, speech. It was his first speech as president. And from Donald Trump's himself, the Secretariat quote, where he was comparing Reince Priebus to a horse, is in this expansion. $10. We still got some left, so go ahead and get them. And if you buy them today, that means they'll probably get shipped today. And everybody who bought them pre-ordered over the last week, that'll get shipped today as well. So go ahead and check it out. thecontender.us. But enough of talking about how we do the show. It's been a whole week, ladies and gentlemen, and boy, have you guys rode up my butt demanding that I bring the politics heat. So what do you say, ladies and gentlemen, that we just do the damn show? Politics. Politics. Hey, everybody. Did you miss me? Huh? Come on. I took a full week from the last time that you guys heard my voice on the podcast feed, at least. I was breaking down the election. I was revealing who I was going to vote for. What sweet summer children we all were back then, right? We can all agree with that now. Man, the world is different. Is the world a vampire? Depends on which Corrigan you ask. But we have so much to take care of. I'm glad that I took the week, by the way. I'm very, very glad that I did not do a podcast within the week. I did record a podcast. I said on Twitter that I was going to do a mailbag podcast, and then I was going to do this show. This is the first show of the new time slot. We are going to do politics on Wednesday, I don't know if it will always be a onesie Wednesday. Maybe if people send in onesies, every once in a while I'll wear a onesie. But I did record something. I was in Austin for a wedding with a bunch of friends, and I kind of got lost, man. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I got lost in the moment because my friends, who are all from Florida, most live in Florida, all live in Florida, except for the lady, the lovely blushing bride, whose wedding we were going out to Texas for. But we all grew up together, high school, and, you know, aside from some of the significant others, we've known each other for a very long time. There were stark divisions within that group on who they were going to vote for. There were Hillary voters, there were Trump voters. The bride herself, very big Hillary supporter. And yet we were all able to enjoy ourselves, man. We just had a blast, just doing nothing but drinking and talking and having a good time, making fun of each other, busting balls like nothing happened. It was just so refreshing, and I got caught up in it. And I really just didn't want to sit down and answer all the questions that I'm going to answer on this show right now. I just wasn't ready to do it. Because all I saw around me whenever I opened up my Twitter account was just, well, what everybody else is dealing with. And for me, I was just like, oh, my goodness. I could just look out here and order another Lone Star and talk to my friends, or I can answer this. So I tried to shoot the gap. I recorded an episode that was basically me saying in much longer, slurrier terms exactly what I've just said. And I was about to release it when I kind of lost the will to do it. And I'm very glad that I did. Because I don't think that, as much as I was happy that I was not immediately giving my immediate hot take, I'm glad that I also was not giving my immediate, hey, you guys love each other, like, find your friends, have a good time, don't worry, buddy, we'll all survive. Because I think that's almost its own brand of obnoxious in these days after the election. Because there's a lot of people, I mean, hell, man, out here in the Bay Area, there are entire cities that are very hurt, right? You ever notice, here's my Andy Rooney tick now. Did you ever notice the only thing you don't want to be called when you're cranky is cranky? That's what all of my life right now. Everybody that I know, you know, that is plugged in, that was very plugged into this election, you know, no one wants to be told everything's going to be okay. They might know it. They don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to know. No one wants to be told, hey, everybody, there will be happiness. Go find your friends. Because I think in their heart of hearts, they know, but nobody wants to be told it, man. They want to be in pain. Like, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that, like, in a good way. You got to process it, right? You got to understand it before you can internalize it and make it a productive part of your life. So I'm glad I didn't do that, and I'm glad that we can just begin to get into this a week later, now that we know a little bit more, and we can process it. So I wrote down a bunch of things that I believe we have more clarity on past Election Day than we had on Election Day. Now, these always exist. This is a very weird election, but this is not a weird phenomenon. An election is the drums of war kind of thing, right? And oftentimes the truth is sacrificed, or at least obscured. I don't mean to say that one side is shaping the truth or whatever, but like it just gets lost in the beat, right? But this election's got some biggins, baby. Like Al Bundy biggins. So let's go ahead and break it down. I can now report exclusively on the Politicsx program that Hillary Clinton has lost the election. A sullen arf, arf, arf for the Hill Dogs. Hillary Clinton lost this election in part because her campaign did not fundamentally understand voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. She didn't need all of them, but she needed at least two. Now, how could we have possibly known? How could they have possibly known that they had a fundamental misunderstanding with voters in those areas? I will tell you how. And I know that at this point in our little process, ain't nobody want to hear about polls, right? Because some polls in general had problems. Some of the polls of polls had larger problems because they were taking the problems with those polls and magnifying them. We're going to get to this a little later. I think we're done with the whole percentages of how likely people are to win, right? Like, because the New York Times upshot, come on, dog. Like, you can't go from 98% Hillary Clinton's going to win and then, like, push that number all the way to Trump winning. Like that can't happen. We'll get to that in a second. But there is one polling phenomenon that I don't believe, even now having listened to a lot of the commentariat, I don't believe that we paid enough attention to. And that, for my Sufjan Stevens fans, is the tale of Michigan. In March, Bernie Sanders scored a stunning upset over Hillary Clinton. The polling was not off. It was way off. Way off. In fact, 538, a site that I'll go to bat for 538. I think that they did a very good job. And by the way, they had to eat a trough of poop in the final 2 weeks from literally every angle. Because liberals wanted 538 to be their blanket. And when they weren't the blanket, when they were a source of anxiety, liberals turned on 538 because, no, you're supposed to be Harry Potter, Nate Silver. You're supposed to be the boy wizard that tells us it'll all be okay. And meanwhile, all these other poll aggregates like Upshot and Huffington Post all came in and said, "Here I come to save the day. Nate Silver's unskewing his polls." And I think they did a good job. Nate Silver, in my opinion, I listened to a lot of them. Especially this election cycle, was always cautioning, was always the one saying, hey, listen, if we're giving Donald Trump a 1 out of 3 chance, that means that every 3 times that we run this election, he wins. Think of it like that. But this is an article written by Harry Enton on March 9th of this year that effectively, the article is called "What the Stunning Bernie Sanders Win in Michigan Means," and it basically says that this is among the largest polling misses that we have ever seen. I'm speaking on 538's behalf at this point. The polls didn't get it in Michigan. And specifically, they didn't get it when somebody who connected with Blue Dog, I'm going to say union, but I don't necessarily mean union, Democrats, had a choice between Hillary Clinton and somebody that spoke closer to their message. Hillary Clinton lost. Now, we're going to get into some of the X's and O's. In fact, let's do it now. How big of a problem was Comey? Comey came out of nowhere, said that they were reopening the FBI investigation, and then 2 days before the election said that based on the new evidence, which is off Anthony Weiner's laptop, that they were closing it. Grand opening, grand closing. So Comey was a problem. But if you look at the polling tightening, it began to tighten before the Comey thing. Now, maybe the Comey thing wound up giving some people permission that everything that they'd feared about Hillary Clinton was indeed true, and that was an ominous portent for the next 4 years, that she would be constant scandal. I know that my flappy head, certainly got that out there, that this was like, well, welcome to the next 4 years. It's just going to be Clinton scandal after Clinton scandal after Clinton scandal after Clinton scandal. But I think that the idea that the polls tighten post Comey are not necessarily the reason why she lost, for the following reasons. Number one, if Comey had not happened, see, everybody looks at this Comey thing like he just burst in the door and started, a bull in a china shopping this bad biatch, right? I don't think that's true. I think that James Comey got the word out there under his own name. If you look at what was happening with like Brett Baier and all the FBI leaking constantly in the wake of the Comey letter, and I have no evidence to back this up, it is my belief that Comey put that note out there because he knew somebody was going to leak that information. And if it could be under his name, then he could at least on some level try and control the story. So the question that you'd have to ask yourself if you're a Clinton supporter is, was the fact that James Comey put his name on it the issue? Or if this was drip-feeded for 5 days over the subsequent week, would that have been better off for Hillary Clinton? And I don't think it would have been. I think the idea that this was out there and that Anthony Weiner was involved, it would have been a bigger story if it was drip-feeded into the media than if James Comey put his name on it. Now, here's the other side on why I think the Comey stuff is a little overrated. I remember listening to reports from people that were on Hillary Clinton's plane as the Comey news broke. The reporters were telling the staff, because the airplane Wi-Fi was down, were telling the staff on what was happening. Previous to them informing the staff, Hillary Clinton's staff, that this Comey stuff had broke, the staff was telling them about how they were altering their schedule to go and try to win more of the map. Remember Hillary Clinton playing in Texas? Remember Hillary Clinton playing in Utah? Remember Hillary Clinton playing in Arizona and New Mexico? That's where she was going to be spending her time if this Comey stuff doesn't break. So you go ahead and tell me how Hillary Clinton, if the Comey thing never happens and never sees the light of day at all, how that would have helped her numbers in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Go ahead and tell me that. How does her in Phoenix at a Waffle House help the fact that she had engagement issues with voters in Michigan? Like that's again, I ain't no expert, man. Like I'm just a girl in the world. That's all that you'll let me be. So I don't know. I just don't see where that is the death blow. Because if you play out either thing, either Comey doesn't put his name on it and it leaks, or Hillary Clinton, and none of it ever happens, and Hillary Clinton goes out and tries to push the map further west. How does that help her in the states that would have been, that wound up being her undoing? Shrug emoji. Now, here's the other problem. And this is something that I talked to Michael Shore. I got to get Michael back on the show. When I was talking to Michael Shore, I was saying I found it to be a high-risk strategy for Hillary to make the election all about Trump's unelectability. Because all Donald Trump had to do was, not be a mega goon, and he would get credit for it. And I am not here in any way for this, but the media gave him a pass. Man, the media spent the vast majority of this election talking about the things that made Donald Trump unelectable. And in any other candidacy, I think it would have. It didn't here. And in the final days, if the entire prosecutorial case is Donald Trump is unelectable, then I just think it opens you up. Now, here's, if you're looking for late in the game maneuvering that might have mattered, Donald Trump going to Minnesota, Donald Trump going to Michigan, Donald Trump going to Wisconsin, states that people did not believe he had a shot at. While Hillary Clinton didn't want to go to Michigan because she was afraid it would make her look weak until the final days of the election. If the issue is in this region of the country, and again, let me make this clear. Deli thin were these margins. This was an extraordinarily close election. Very, 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 very close. So understand that everything that I'm saying, take this in degrees. Like, this is not a tale about how Donald Trump romped the map. He did, very, very, very thin margins in more states than anybody expected him to. So, that is in and of itself insanely impressive for a campaign to do, but it does not mean that he was just dominant. It doesn't mean that she was an absolute disaster. It means that she lost the faith of an electorate she thought she had in the bag. And that's it. Very, very, very small margins we are talking about. So what happened with those small margins? Well, man, each party had a revolution this year. The Republicans had it during their primary. The Democrats had it during their election day. And I hope that all the Hill Dogs that were doing the Muttley laugh, and there were plenty of them during that GOP primary when Ted Cruz was refusing to endorse Donald Trump and John Kasich was Schrodinger's governor, both in Cleveland and not in Cleveland at the same time. And Mitt Romney was talking about how terrible Donald Trump was, and the Bushes were not going to show up, and Marco Rubio can barely find the time to record a hey, everybody, I guess I'm voting for Trump. Okay, thanks, bye video. I hope all those laughs were worth it, because the pageantry and the, by comparison, orderly transition of power on the Democratic side might have only served to pancake makeup something that was plainly there. There was a rift in the Democratic Party. And ultimately, and again, margins, very thin margins, that might have been the problem. One of the benefits of waiting a week with this is that we not only get to see a lot of the hard numbers that have come out, but also that we get to see the takes on takes on takes. They got takes on takes on takes. First it was Bernie would have won. Oh, man, I read so many, but Bernie would have won. Oh, let's go ahead and take a look at all these polls, man, about how good Bernie was doing. As if anybody wants to be making an argument based on polls these days. Then it was the anti-Bernie, right? Well, Bernie was only doing this well against Donald Trump because the Republicans hadn't gotten to him and they were salivating at the chance to dump that Oppo file. Well, I don't think that Bernie Sanders would have won. Because the Oppo file on Bernie Sanders is bad. Bernie Sanders does not react well when he's under pressure. He didn't really get a chance to be under pressure. He was able to fight from underneath the entire primary. And I don't know, as much as Bernie Sanders resonated with like hardcore union Democrats, I don't think that somebody who is even a democratic socialist like would have polled well with independents. That being said, if we want to get all up in this business of superdelegates and all up in this business of the DNC leaning way too hard on one candidate, then to me the casualty is the man of 1,000 memes right now. Y'all seen those Biden memes? Y'all seen them? I've been saying this entire election. The problem is that by the time that the Beau Biden stuff had worked its way through, that Joe showed up in terms of campaign staff, in terms of superdelegates, and in terms of money, he was just too far behind. That does not happen in a DNC that wants to give Hillary one real final test. The fact that Bernie Sanders made it close is a credit to Bernie Sanders, but he had no shot in that race. Joe Biden did. Joe Biden is somebody that would have went and put the pressure on Hillary. He didn't run. But if you're going to tell me that Joe Biden, the actual inheritor of the legacy of Obama that Hillary Clinton tried to play off of, would have lost Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and oh, no. I can't even bear myself to say the idea that Joe Biden would lose Pennsylvania? Mr. Scranton? That homie's more associated with Scranton than the American office. He's more associated with Scranton than the Wilkes-Barre Penguins. He's more associated with Scranton than I've already lost track of things that have anything to do with Scranton. Like that is insane to me. I don't think Joe Biden loses this election. I think that if you look at the numbers when he got in, he would have had a hard time beating Hillary Clinton. But if he had been able to get out, I think he would have beaten. I think he would have beaten Donald Trump. And I think that he would have exposed a lot of these same polling blind spots for Hillary earlier in the primary that Bernie Sanders did. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is like a superdelegates thing. All I'm saying is that there was a lot of talk at those conventions. A lot of talk at those conventions. A lot of it. That was about, man, I bet you I'll bet you those Republicans wish they had superdelegates. They wouldn't have to be dealing with Trump. How bad does these superdelegates look now? Because we get the candidate that has the best chance of winning and they don't. Well, I mean, again, it's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. One day you're going to laugh so hard you kill yourself. That's just a fact. Speaking of facts, let's talk about facts. Here's another take on take on take. They got takes on takes on takes. They got Twitter, they got them takes. Facebook's got them takes. Medium's got them takes. Here's another take. Facts. We live in a post-fact world. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a post-fact world. Post-facts. Fake news on Facebook. We corrupted the election, don't you know? Fake news. Google will be banning fake news. Please, everybody, report every meme you see as fake. Here's one of these things where I just want to I want to speak for our conservative listeners. Now, there's a lot of sites out there, websites. You heard of them? It's www.whatever.pizza. And a lot of them write a lot of stuff. In fact, blog networks tend to write volumes of it. The idea that more is better is often the story of the day for blogs. You know, you create sub-niches on sub-niches on sub-niches. You chain a bunch of millennials to a desk and you say, hey, listen, you can get a ham sandwich when you hit this amount of page views. And oftentimes that leads to completely skewed, unrealistic, if not outright false material. And so while I am sympathetic to the idea that misleading, slanted information tends to inform our populace, dude, you got a hard time telling me that if we're going to look at fake news, if we're going to look at things that are in a post-fact world, then what's upshot? Right? Like, upshot lied to you. Everybody reading this. Everybody listening to this. I don't know who's reading this. Do we print this out as a transcript? I'm asking my invisible producer. It said that Donald Trump did not have a shot in this election, that this was OVA. And I don't blame Upshot at the New York Times. They were looking at what they got. They reported what they had. Sometimes this stuff is messy. And I tend to have a wide berth for information that is trying to make a point. Because, in my opinion, the idea that we live in a world where news automatons go around and find the news, scanning for news, pulling the news back, synthesizing news, posting news with a snarky headline. Like, I don't think that exists less than I believe we think it does. Now, it's not to say that there is not amazing work being done. And I will single out the Washington Post and the New York Times as going out and doing exceptional on-the-ground work. But man, if you can't read the bias in those outlets, like, I don't know what to tell you. And oftentimes it comes in focus, and oftentimes it comes in language. But whether or not you want to say that there's a bias because they want to gin up a horse race, or you want to say that there's a bias because they are left-leaning, I don't know if there's a lot of people out here that are saying that they're right-leaning, but let's just assume. Like, media's imperfect. Data scientists got it wrong. Political veterans got it wrong. I mean, can we blame sites like Breitbart and InfoWars for playing into reality that the news media has a habit of shading facts to meet a center-left agenda? I mean, I can't. Doesn't mean I like them. Doesn't mean I agree with them. Doesn't mean that I take them as the gospel, but are we to scrub them? Are we to deny them access into what people want to discuss it? This gets into a larger top-down issue for me about, like, the idea of personal responsibility. The idea that there should be some larger entity that is restricting these things. Now, let me just say this. Aside from finding Alex Jones to be somebody that I think is a tremendously humorous communicator for my personal taste, I think the vast majority of what he says is not to my personal standards. In fact, I think a lot of what he says is downright horrifying. Breitbart the same way. For every article that I think is I'm happy is there because it's a counterpunch to what I see is kind of a center left herding in some even very, very well done media outlets. There's some stuff on there where I'm like, oh my God, that's horrifying. But I think we walk down a troubling road when we look at true versus untrue. When we look at facts versus not facts. Not because they can't exist. It's just that to build a filter to find them can very often, in my opinion, have unintended consequences. And somebody said in the chat room, there is a difference between like wrong and lying. And I agree with that. I'm just saying finding it can often be more hazardous than we initially think. And let's talk about the media a little bit more. Did the media elect Trump? No. Moving on. Here's my last big point. I want to talk because, again, margins, thin margins, small margins. But the community that did not turn out for Hillary Clinton are what we like to call the working class. The working class. What are the working class? What are voters without a college degree? Well, as it's been pointed out a few times in this election, post-election, the working class is not the poor. Let's understand that. Working class is not the working poor. Now, sure, you can get some overlap there. But the idea of a higher minimum wage is for working poor. Working class voters are not necessarily swayed by that. People without a college degree are not low information voters. These are not the same things. And so when we talk about echo chamber and we talk about maybe Hillary Clinton got sucked up into the echo chamber, and maybe she and her team did not quite understand that she needed to talk to them in a different way than she talks to poor voters. But let me ask this, because this is something that I think, I've thought a lot about. On the left, you talk a lot about college is too expensive. It is. You talk a lot about kids coming out with massive student debt and not having a lot to show for it. They do. So if we're going to talk about the high barrier and low reward for college constantly to attract millennial voters, then how, on the other hand, can we say the people that decide not to do it are low information? Maybe they're just smart. Maybe they just see a crap deal when it stares them in the face and figure they can just continue to move into another field. They can start making money. Because I went to a school. Hell, I went to a private school. And I knew a lot of dumb people. And I mean exceptionally stupid. Want to know what the difference was? Their parents had money. That's it. Some of my best friends never went to college. And they are among the most brilliant people I have ever met in my entire life. In fact, I've often had fantasies that I didn't go to college. Because I feel on some level, and this is just in my own head, that I stunted my own entrepreneurial spirit by wasting those years in college. Now listen, to every path their own, and I'm not here to denigrate a college education. That'll be a whole nother level, a whole nother episode. But let's understand that not everybody in this country goes to college, and less than 40%, I believe, get a degree. And by and large, they're on the coast. And I'm one of them. Which brings me to my final point. Here is the takiest of all the takes. Yes, the takiest of all the takes. We're in a bubble. Ah, a bubble. I can't. I don't know. How do I even talk to these people if they are not in my same bubble? How are we? What do you mean the working class was not swayed by Sia? Ah, no. But Bruce Springsteen only sings about the working class. How are they not swayed by his endorsement? Let me list all the counties that I've grown up in. Fort Worth doesn't count because I was there for, literally 8 months. I grew up in Orange County, in Orlando. I grew up in San Diego County. I grew up in Broward County. I went to college in Onondaga County. Then I lived, I believe, in Bergen County in New Jersey, wherever Hoboken is. Sorry, New Jersey. Back in Broward. Now I live in Alameda. All of them, except for San Diego County, which was rapidly bluing, are all liberal counties. All of them. Except for maybe Onondaga, and I went to a liberal school. So it's like, it doesn't really matter. You know, if whoever else voted outside of the Hill, that was pretty much it. I live in a bubble. You likely live in a bubble. Now, I know that this election is hard to swallow. And we're going to get into some of the more ramification stuff now that we're kind of through my election takeaways. But if you believe in politics, if you believe the idea, and listen, I understand that I look at the elections in a bit of a different way. I try to take an unemotional viewpoint on it and look at it as a horse race. Well, guess what? If you want to win the White House, you got to look at it like a horse race. And if you want to craft a message it's going to speak not just to you, well, you might need to take a peek out. I know that to me is what I believe this podcast is now about. I want to be a clearinghouse of political ideas from all angles. We have built a diverse coalition of listeners on this show, and I want to make sure that we all don't just think about, okay. Like, we actually listen to each other. And that's another reason why I'm very happy that we took a week off. Is because I'm going to need my Trump trainers to just work out whatever left of that Deion Sanders touchdown dance y'all are on. And although I know you are crestfallen, I need my Hill Dogs to at least begin to think about lending an ear. Because as we go forward, I do believe that this podcast can do some change. I do believe that we can think about something in a little different way. I do believe that we can hold our politicians accountable for the promises that they make. And I do believe that we can try to course correct them if we believe that they are being tone deaf. I believe that we can help our candidates and we can help America by listening and talking to the people that listen to this show. And hell, we ain't got a lot, right? I know what our listenership is. It ain't a gigantic amount. But I'll tell you this, it was enough to swing some of them counties that Hillary Clinton lost. It would have been enough to put Donald Trump ahead in a few states. So hell, if this is all we got, then this is all we got. And I'm now totally excited. I'm very excited to continue doing this show. Because I was always looking for a purpose. I was always looking for a reason to do a show when it wasn't just an election. And hell, I think we found one. You can go ahead and start off, you can start off by emailing us at theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Again, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. You want to know what? God damn it. I'll tell you what. I had 2 catchphrase takeaways from this election, and I put them at the bottom of my thing, and I forgot about them. All right, here's the first one. Styles make fights. Styles make fights is a quote that often gets said about that gets said about boxing. It doesn't matter if one boxer is more talented than the other boxer. If the lesser boxer's style exposes a weak point for the better boxer, then that's going to be a problem. Ultimately, Donald Trump underperformed Mitt Romney. And yet, I mean, listen, Michael Shore was on. He said, I just have no idea how he's going to get more votes than Mitt Romney. Guess what? He didn't. But he spoke to voters in places that he thought Hillary Clinton was weak in. Styles make fights. Secondly, hey, listen, man, when it came to Hillary Clinton, the emperor had no clothes, and the DNC and the Clinton campaign thought that the solution was a louder parade. And so, man, we heard a lot about how great she was. But did she really do anything to repair the damage? Did she really do anything to reshape her image? I remember being at the Democratic convention, and I said, you want to know what would really help Hillary Clinton? Go to a friendly journalist. Go to Stephanopoulos, right? Sit down with Bill Clinton and address everything. Address everything. Address Monica. Address Whitewater. Address the email server. Literally go, just go and take the wind out of those sails. Apologize for some of them. Say out and out that, listen, we've had a long career, and many times we might have cut a few corners for the greater good, but that's how much we care. And everybody laughed at me. They said, like, come on, why would they do that? She's going to win anyway. Well, one more takeaway, mini takeaway. Hey, remember big money in politics? Remember when we were all worried about big money in politics? Remember when we were worried about the Koch brothers? Oh, the Koch brothers. Oh, jeez. Where are we at on that now? Where are we at on big money in politics? Because the Koch brothers sat out on this one. And Hillary Clinton had a lot more money than Donald Trump. Not a little, a lot more money than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump won. So I think some of our assumption about money in politics, we got to rethink. We got to rethink a little bit. All right. theyoungamerican@gmail.com, the most important mailbag on the internet. Anonymous Diamond writes, I am trans. I'm scared for what my future looks like under the Trump administration. The first thing that will happen is with the new Justice SCOTUS will rule on GG versus Gloucester County School Board and almost for sure define Title IX to not include gender identity. This will let states know that there will be no federal resistance to anti-trans bills, and my nightmare will begin in earnest. This will be before the Trump admin even makes a move on their own. The admin office being put together by Reparative Therapy Pence has just added alt-right hero Steve Bannon to the team. My future looks very bleak, and I am terrified. What do you say to listeners like me? Yesterday, I had a Trump supporter tell me straight on that he's in favor of laws that put my life in danger because he is not for the, quote, gender identity agenda, unquote. I can't emotionally deal with these people who literally wish me harm being given equal treatment or coverage anymore. If you answer on your podcast, I won't hear it because of that. But I do want to know what you say to people like me. Peace and love. I know you are not against me. Here's another reason that I'm glad I took a week, because I looked at this, the way I wanted to talk about this differently before I talked to my mom. My mom has survived effectively 2 divorces, one of her ex-husbands dying, and the same one coming back to life. She's dealt with repairing her credit by way of those relationships twice. She's raised 2 kids. She has dealt with our hardships. She is a tough lady. She is somebody for whom I model my own resolve after. I am only as strong as my mom. And when I talked to her for her birthday 2 days ago, 6 days after the election, she was despondent. Man, I couldn't even talk to her. She was just like listless. I never heard her like that. It shook me to the core. And so I'm very glad that Anonymous Diamond wrote in, and I'm very glad that I didn't answer it until now. Because for whatever reason, I was having a hard time getting into my head what kind of despair people on the left are feeling. So let me start with the important part. Empathy is my biggest banner right now. And I do believe that empathy is defined by the groups in which society does not shine upon. I don't believe that the trans community is one that is shined upon by society. So the trans community will always have my ear. Now, if that is not where you are at personally, that's fine. But if you respect me, then all I would ask is that you understand that. Otherwise, I would implore you to look after those that are currently, might not be having a good time. I'm very, very, very excited for you to be a part of our community, and I am very, very excited to lend you an ear and for us to help in any way that we can. What do I say to you? Well, I don't want to tell you that everything's going to be all right, because Quite honestly, I don't know if anything's going to be all right. Since I wanted to focus on the election and not necessarily the transition in this episode, I'll give you the TLDR. I don't know if anybody knows how Trump is going to govern. I mean, Donald Trump came out on 60 Minutes and said gay marriage is settled law, but Roe versus Wade decided 50 years earlier. You know, I like that's something that they want to revisit. So, like, I don't know. Is the Donald Trump that brought on gay conversion therapy Mike Pence the real Donald Trump? Or is it the Donald Trump that brings in a gay icon, Peter Thiel, who goes up on stage during the Republican convention and says, I'm a gay Republican and I'm proud of both. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, I was very happy to see that everybody cheered for that. Is that the real Donald Trump? Who's going to have power? Because, yeah, alt-right hero Steve Bannon of Breitbart is now the senior advisor to the president. But Breitbart itself has very, 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 very complicated views on homosexuality in general. The biggest star on Breitbart is Milo, whatever his last name is. Why 90,000 vowels? Now, that doesn't mean that any of this is good for you in terms of the legislation. And I understand that. And I can't tell you everything's going to be okay, because that would be a lie. And I'm not in the business of lying to you. But I will say that we can walk this path together. And I know that you are always going to bear more of the brunt than I will. And I don't want to overstate my place. But whatever I can do, I will. And that's a promise. David writes, I was curious about the election turnout numbers this morning and comparing it to elections and last election's presidential vote turnout numbers, so I went looking for any useful analysis I could find on the internet. When I found nothing useful, I decided to make my own using Wikipedia's numbers and figured I'd share. Looks like the total voter turnout, as well as in the states I found interesting: Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Here are some of the numbers I found interesting. Voter turnout was down. Trump received fewer popular votes than Romney did in 2012. In some states where Trump turned Republican, there was a general decrease in the total vote, and it appears that the Democrats just stayed home in Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Florida had a bigger turnout, and both candidates had more votes than either did in 2012. And I'll share that spreadsheet with everybody in the show notes. Another anonymous diamond writes, so I was having a civil debate with a friend that essentially boiled down to the idea that a vote for Trump was inherently a vote for racism. Saying any reason you would want to vote for him is independent of intent. Even if you didn't mean to vote, you support racism, sexism, sexual violence, xenophobia, and homophobia. It totally does. While I was saying that you can detest the fact that Trump is a racist, homophobic, sexist, and still think that he is the best thing for the country because he is outside the system, can bring good change. While I do think that Trump is a terrible person and I could never vote for him, I've lived in red states, likely voting for Trump, my entire life. And I know a lot of people that are those voters. And to be completely honest, I can't believe that over 50 million people voted to support racism in 2016. All right. So let's deal with just, is the country racist? I mean, number one, is the country racist is a weird statement, right? Because it assumes that it's a new thing. Like, man, I sure as hell saw a whole lot of racism around when we apparently abolished racism with a post-racial president. So, is the country racist? Sure. But that's same as it ever was, right? Is voting for Donald Trump racist? I mean, if we were to run an election where it was Donald Trump versus replacement candidate Clinton, where she wasn't Hillary Clinton, she was just a replacement level Democrat, I don't think he wins. Now, let's drill down even further and say that beyond places where culturally you just always vote Republican and that's it, and even if you had a hard time doing it, like in Utah, you eventually just hold your nose and do it because the Democrats have a ideology that will poison our moral fiber. Are those thin margins in Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, are those thin margins, are they racist? Well, considering that a lot more people voted for Obama, or a lot of those same voters voted for Obama 4 years ago, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a complicated question. So, am I going to weasel out of this? Yes. But I will say this. I think it's more complicated than just a yes-no binary. That's just my opinion. Here's a tortured metaphor from Heath. This might be our last tortured metaphor. Laura Roslin, a lifelong civil servant, obviously Hillary Clinton for the sake of this metaphor, is running a campaign as best she can to keep literally all of humanity alive, while popular outsider Gaius Baltar, a.k.a. Trump, campaigns against her on a platform of populism. The wedge issue is in broad strokes: do we progress as a people or do we regress? Baltar wins, and people choose to regress. Then the episode time jumps ahead, and all the problems of Baltar's administration become apparent. Labor disputes because jobs are scarce. Baltar doesn't know how to improve or make jobs. Increased anxiety because of poor access to health care. Education not exactly being a priority. And Baltar doesn't seem really interested in governing. Then the Cylons show up, and all of humanity are forced to live under Cylon occupation until the Galactica returns, eliminates the Cylons, and frees humanity from oppression. If parts of this sound familiar, it's because all of this has happened before and it will happen again. I don't know who the Colonel Ty of this resistance to everything Trump stands, but Bernie has white hair. Well, hell, that obviously comes from a certain perspective, but sorry to everybody for whom we spoiled Battlestar Galactica Season 2. Marlon writes, the Supreme Court decision to legalize gay marriage, climate change reform, Planned Parenthood, other LGBT protections. How quickly do you believe total Republican control over our government that they are going to repeal and limit socially progressive measures? I mean, I don't know. Dude, we just elected a guy who 5 years ago said that he would describe himself as very, 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 very pro-choice, and now has gotten elected with a gay conversion vice president. Baby, we are in uncharted waters. I'm just doing my best like Captain Carl to keep both hands on the wheel. Jason writes, so it was all about getting people out to vote. One person had a much more active base than the other one did, and yet social media is up in arms about the results. I almost feel like people are mad at me because I didn't vote the way that they wanted me to. Personally, I voted for Johnson. Is this Brian? Did Brian write this in? I voted for Johnson not because I thought he would win, but because he may have a chance at 5 to 10% of the vote. Most of the people I know are telling people that they voted wrong live a city life. If you look at the maps of Ohio and Pennsylvania, you can see that the blue cities are surrounded by red county voters. Heck, I believe I read that Trump even got the Amish out to vote. I guess the big question is, when will the healing start and the blame go away? The healing will start when we stop looking for the blame to go away. That's my best answer. Dennis writes, as the father of 3 daughters, I was worried about breaking the news of the election to my 2 elementary school girls. Not because I find him significantly more terrifying or that I'm worried that one man can limit their ability to achieve their life's ambitions, but because they had grown to truly loathe the man due to what they were hearing at school. They seem to have responded well to my speech on the limits of executive powers and our country's ability to shrug off previous less than ideal candidates, but I hate that I live in a world where the mere idea of a man being nominated to office is bringing such stress to elementary school-age children. Though there's an upside that I'll get to break out my kid-friendly version of Brian Brushwood's God King metaphor tonight. Well, I'll make sure that Brian knows. Rishi writes, glad to hear you're still going to be doing the show, especially with the Trump train now in full speed. Also, I'm a liberal who can still listen to J.R. Young even though he said he's a Republican who voted for his mom. I can enjoy something about having to agree with it 100%. Everyone grow the F up. Anyway, I imagine this win is a huge LOL what for the Republican Party. I think winning the Senate, House, and presidency adds fuel to the fire for the conservatives who are unhappy with the establishment. Thoughts? Man, you're talking about somebody who literally ran his entire primary race about destroying the establishment of the Republican Party and then made the head of the Republican Party his chief of staff. Shrug emoji. I just don't know. Jessica writes, like many people this morning, am overwhelmed by the results of this election. Like you, I chose not to vote for any of the candidates, but I did vote for local candidates and ballot initiatives. But I believe we abstained for different reasons. Your decision was an educated decision, and mine, on the other hand, and I hate to say this, was because I truly am an uneducated voter. And for that reason, elections leave me feeling uncomfortable. Talking about politics makes me feel uncomfortable. But I don't think that I can be considered an uncommon voter in that regard. This election cycle taught me that the uneducated voter is the scariest vote, and I never want to walk into a polling booth uneducated again. Well, Jessica, life's a choose-your-own adventure. That's the good news. Norman writes, what did I tell my daughter today when she woke up? Did I cry about how the world is much harder for her now? Harder for people who think in the systems and innovations that already believe this world is great and that we just need to study more with science? No, I read her this holy text as I am about to read to you now. It's not worth doing something unless you are doing something that someone, somewhere, would much rather you weren't doing. By Terry Pratchett from the book Rebel. Don't whine, change, don't be how they want you to be. Well, Norman, thank you for sharing. Matt writes, I've been a fan of your work for a long time. First time I've written in. In fact, Norman maybe can talk to Dennis. Dennis and Norman can get together for a nice little PTA meeting where everybody talks to their kids at the same time. Matt writes, I've been a fan of your work for a long time. This is the first time I've written in. I'm not exactly sure why I'm sending this to you, but I'm feeling more anxious and uncertain than I have in a long time. I admired the sentiment of your vote when you revealed it, but I thought there was also a way for you to save face. I never thought in a million years that Trump would actually win. Somehow now I feel hurt and betrayed by you. Maybe it comes with the unearned intimacy of being a longtime listener. I'm a young gay guy. My partner's an immigrant. I'm studying environmental science. We were Bernie supporters, but we knew that there was a right choice in the end. I think you knew it too. For many people like us, there was no luxury to throw away a vote. Maybe you felt like you had less to lose as a straight, middle-class white guy. I don't mean that pejoratively, honestly, but with the GOP controlling almost all branches of government, there's a real uncertainty for the rights and future of many vulnerable communities. I just wish you'd shown a little more spine. Matt, thank you for writing in. I did not get a lot of negative flack to the whole mom thing. This was probably among the worst of it. And let me just tell you, that's totally cool. I appreciate where you are coming from. I don't know exactly what my exact vote would have done. Hillary Clinton won the primary, won the popular vote, so my one vote wouldn't have pushed her closer to that. I was in California, so obviously my delegates were already going to be voting for Hillary Clinton. So it is true that I felt a little safer taking that position. I do believe, honestly, that I would if I was in Florida, though. I had great reservations about Hillary Clinton. And I understand that's from my perspective, and I understand that just as we were talking about the trans listener earlier, man, I I feel for you. I don't think that this is a problem with voters. As I mentioned when we were talking about who to vote for before the election, I think that ultimately the problems that we deal with are not with voters, but with politicians. And although it is passing the buck to say, don't be mad at me, be mad at Hillary Clinton. I mean, be mad at Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton had a lot of money. Hillary Clinton had a huge apparatus. Hillary Clinton was fighting for the ideals, many of the ideals that we both share, Matt. And she couldn't get it done. And maybe voters like me were the canary in the coal mine. Maybe voters who were very turned off by Trump, like I was, in the primary, early. Maybe the fact that she could not attract me was a canary in the coal mine situation. And maybe I just talk about it a lot because I'm doing this podcast. But ultimately, I can't really apologize who I voted for. But I will apologize to you if it's something that you wish I would have been better at. And although that has come and gone, I will hope and aspire to do better by your point of view as we go forward. And I would hope that you continue to listen and write into the show. Finally, Miles writes, first, let me say how glad I am that PX3 will be continuing. Because of this show and the insight you provide on the morning stream, I've taken an interest in politics for the first time in my 32 years on this earth. Second, assuming this election is over and we don't have some sort of dangling participle issue, the Republican Party will control the Senate, House, and Oval Office. Normally, this would be cause for a party, as anything that they want to put into law would almost assuredly get approved. However, Trump has been very publicly at odds with many of his party members. And to me, he seems like a guy that would hold on to a grudge. Geez, you think? I added editorially. Even though this is one of the most historic elections of all time, it may be one of the most effective. I would love to hear your opinion on this. Well, guess what, homie? Every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, I will be here to bring it to you. Email theyoungamerican@gmail.com if you want to be a part of this show. Go ahead and buy The Contender, thecontender.us. Sign up for the mailing list. We got Black Friday stuff coming up. We got surprises. We got deals. Go ahead and check us out. Thecontender.us. Music provided by Valesco and Trap Killers. And you can find me at Justin R. Young everywhere that you find social media. I'm back on Snapchat. I'm back on the Snap train. Go ahead and check me out at Justin R. Young. Yell at me or just, I don't know, say hi. Just give me a hi. Give me a shy hi on Snapchat. Of course, you can download all of the episodes of this show at bonerwars.com. Hey, let me know what bits you want to stay around, what bits you don't want me to keep. Suggest new bits. We embark on a brave new world. I will see you next Wednesday because some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. Still more. They discuss politics, but this is the only show that talks about all three. Woo! Let's go, folks.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was a meaty one. That one went long. God, it feels so good to be back on my own machine, though. All those creature comforts. Yeah, I mean, listen. If people have ideas to keep around the pole dance, then we'll do what we can, baby. Let's take a look at Showbit. It's a Showbit. Let's take a look at the Showbit. Oh, we could do international pole dance. International pole dance might be a thing. Oh, I do like that. Oh, I do like that. Oh. Post-fact world. The Emperor had no pantsuit. Shrug emoji. I kind of feel like shrug emoji. Shrug emoji. That might be my pick. Just because I don't want anything to be politically slanted in an episode where I'm asking for empathy. Yeah, there's polls about scientific issues all the time, but I don't want to. I mean, like, those are science. This ain't science. I also kind of like the idea of me just mangling foreign words. Me mangling foreign names is a good idea. All right, we're going to go shrug emoji, but I believe emoji has a J, so it's going to be shrug. E-M-O-J-I. Unless, wait, no, I can just do the shrug emoji, right? Will that screw up pod readers if I just do the shrug emoji guy? Oh, it could screw up. Oh, it fucks up the RSS. Okay, yeah. All right, shrug emoji it is. That's what we'll do. I'm not gonna bork everybody's dork, man. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. All right, guys. Well, I am in the post here. Do I see you again today? No. I don't think I see you guys again today. I think I'm off for today. I'm gonna go to the contender and mail more contender stuff. But I will see you guys tomorrow for DTNS. And then Friday, might have, I don't know. Thinking about maybe still doing a Friday show. Maybe I'll still do a Friday show. I got an idea for a Friday show. Okay. I will see you guys. Oh, I'm still recording. Bye, YouTube.